I want people to understand, even if you're a Democrat or you're a progressive or you're a Republican or you're independent, I want you to understand what the media does on a daily basis, because almost every element of how they operate is deceptive. They deceive, 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 lie, 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 exploit, exploit, exploit. And I say this with no joy. I say this with no pride. I'm just telling you this because I see how they're operating, and it's really disgusting to me. It's really disturbing. These people are very deceptive. So when a Republican does something wrong, you know about it immediately. Republican did this, Republican did this, Republican did this, Republican did this, Republican did this. It's all over Twitter. It's all over Facebook. It's all over New York Times, Washington Post. It's everywhere. But when a Democrat does something racist, they actually try to hide it and trick you into thinking subconsciously that it was actually a Republican doing it. They won't tell you it's a Democrat, and they use little tricks to make you think it's actually a Republican when it's not. And I'm going to give you an example. There was a Detroit representative, Democrat, Betty Cook, who said something racist to an Asian woman. I don't know exactly what. I think it was something ignorant, like ching chong, or something very, very ignorant, very arrogant, disgusting. You know, not what you want to do if you're getting into politics, and not what you want to do if you're a good person. You know, I just don't. I don't like people taking jabs at other cultures like that. I don't think it's very nice. But instead of publishing, this story was all over Twitter, and I scrolled for about a couple minutes, and I saw everywhere that it was posted, they didn't tell you that it was a Democrat, but because she's technically a representative, they use REP. So everywhere you looked on Twitter, it said REP Betty Cook, REP Betty Cook. Of course, REP dot can stand for two things. It could stand for Republican, or it could stand for representative. It's used both ways. But when a Republican does something, they tell you Republican, Republican, Republican all over the place. They don't say rep, they say Republican, so you know who it is. When a Democrat, almost every time that they do something illegal, whether it's beat their wife or, say something racist or do something horrible or get arrested, they say rep. They won't tell you it's a Democrat because they want to subconsciously trick you into thinking it's a Republican. Why else would you put rep, REP, REP? So before I saw I scrolled on the Twitter features story. Before I saw one source that actually said that it was a Democrat, because it was, there was almost 10 or 15 different places where it said rep Betty Cook, 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 rep Betty Cook. The average person is going to think that rep means Republican, but it also means representative, and they do this every single time. I'm sorry, these are disgusting, disgusting people, and I don't even consider for a second, and I'll consider for a second because I consider everything, but they know exactly what they're doing. This is not a mistake. Jack from Twitter recently admitted on television, or wherever he had an interview, that Twitter has a left-leaning bias. Oh, you think? It's not just a little left-leaning bias. You're talking to somebody my whole life who I was never Republican-leaning or Republican-favoring. But what I found out this last year, which is why I'm saying, go vote red. I mean, vote for the best person, but I just don't trust anybody on the left anymore. I don't trust the Democrats. I really don't trust the progressive socialists, to be honest, and I've said why multiple times. But these are the games that they play. Anytime they do something, they project it onto other people, and then they silence and censor you from saying it's them. So all the fascistic tactics that have been used by the most evil regimes in history, they use on a daily basis. They own 98% of the media, 90% of the media. Twitter is liberal-leaning. Facebook is liberal-leaning. Google is liberal-leaning. YouTube is liberal-leaning. They're kicking people off. They're deleting, censoring, silencing. Every single story that they publish, every single story is left-leaning. I mean, if I was a scientist or I was a mathematician, I would actually, which I don't feel like doing because I could just roughly estimate and be just as effective, but I would sit and figure out how many stories on Twitter that I see per year are left-leaning. My estimation is between 95 and 99%. I never see a story that goes in Republicans' favor. I never see a story that goes in Libertarians' favor. The entire system is a brainwashing tool to make people into insufferable leftists. They censor and silence. This is something that happened recently on Facebook. They censored PragerU video talking about masculinity and the benefits of masculinity. But every single day, they push the sexualization of children and the basically, manipulation of children to tell women to be men and men to be women and tell little boys that they should be wearing makeup. 12-year-old girls probably shouldn't even be wearing makeup. That's too young, and we don't need to be sexualizing 12-year-olds. That's disgusting. But the media thinks it's okay to tell 12-year-old boys to wear makeup, sexualizing 12-year-old boys. It's really sick stuff if you think about it. That's okay. They could feature that on Twitter and New York Times every single day. But if PragerU tries to basically play devil's advocate and be like, here's why masculinity is good. I mean, doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand why masculinity is good. It's basically what women want. All of these guys who are all over like, ooh, feminist is the future. I'm a feminist. They're basically, probably trying to get laid and have a really hard time doing so. I'm not hating. I'm just saying it's like, women like masculine men. You don't have to be overly masculine and egotistical and arrogant and cocky. Like, that's obnoxious. I agree. That type of masculinity is toxic. But basic masculinity is being censored by Facebook as they push the sexualization of children. And this is the sick stuff that they do. And every time a Democrat does something wrong, like being racist, like Democrat Betty Cook, they subconsciously try to convince you that it's a Republican by hiding the fact that it's a Democrat and using the term rep, R-E-P, which means representative, instead of just saying Democrat. They say rep, rep, rep. So 98, think about how sick this is. 98% or 90% of all their headlines are always anti-Republican, pro-Democrat, anti-Republican, anti-Republican. And the one time it's actually, this is the first time maybe in 2 months that I've seen any story go against the Democrat. They tell you it's a rep. They don't say it's a Democrat, they say it's a rep. So even when Democrats do something wrong, the 1% time that they actually call out Democrats, they try to subconsciously convince you that it's a Republican. And I mean, if you are a Democrat or you're a progressive or you're an independent who's just trying to figure it out, or you're somebody who doesn't watch the news and says, Anomaly, how do they do this to women and children? These are the manipulative games they play on a daily basis, and it's not even close to what their bias is. It's like a 98% liberal bias, and they still lose, and that's not enough. So they got to track my location 24/7, and they got to delete my page, and they got to censor this video, and they got to tell people I'm a threat to the community on Instagram, and they have to shadow ban people from sharing my live streams because, oh my goodness, is this spam? No, it's not spam. Who told you it was spam? Did you think it was spam? Did liberal people who work for your organization say it was spam? Did the AI algorithm, artificial intelligence bots that you have doing human work say it was spam? Because it's not spam. It's the truth, and that's what they don't want people to know.